Like I said, this is kind of new for us to do a kind of hybrid meeting. So we always start off a little bit kind of giving a update on what's going on in the multifamily market, specifically here in Los Angeles. So I should introduce myself. I'm Will Tiao. I am the director of the commercial division here at the Collective Realty. I specialize in multifamily and mixed-use sales. We also, with my wife Diana, we own a property management company called Tiao Properties. We manage over 200 units throughout the city of Los Angeles and surrounding areas. We are also investors and developers as well. So whenever we look at a deal, we always look at it from the same viewpoint, which is like, how do the numbers work? Like, what is the area? We try to dig down deep into what we would look at if we were investing in it ourselves. Almost all of our clients are what I would call mom and pop owners. We don't really work with institutional investors for the most part, although some institutional investors are starting to look at some of the sales that we're looking at, particularly the bigger ones. But we pride ourselves in kind of doing these meetups, to kind of educate people on multifamily investing, on the ins and outs of it. There is so much always going on. It's a changing market. It's a changing regulatory environment. So you always need to be kind of up to date on what's happening. So, so the first part, we always talk a little bit about what's going on in the market right now. And everybody, the question everybody has asked, and I got this yesterday from a banker, from a lender. He asked me, how are the rising interest rates affecting multifamily? And it's very interesting. I think all of us have seen a slowdown on the single family residential side. Like, I think, bar none, right? Like, single family condos are heavily affected by the interest rates. And everybody's affected, obviously, on a certain level. But what's interesting is that I would call small multifamily, and when I call by small, I mean like less than $10 million and less, so like 30 units and less here in the city of Los Angeles. I would say it's barely, if any, been affected at all. If anything, what we're seeing, and I was just confirming this with the escrow company that I work with, Constantly Glen Oaks Escrow, something with Allison Opic, and she's just like, I'm opening escrows left and right for investors because they're pulling money out of stocks. They're pulling money out of crypto. They're pulling money out of everything that's dropping money and putting it into multifamily because it's the one asset class that hasn't dropped in this economy, right? If anything, rents have not only stabilized, they continue to grow, right? That's the thing, is that like with rents, and we hear this nationwide, it's part of the inflation numbers, in fact, is that rents just keep getting stronger and stronger. So it's just one of those asset classes that, particularly during downturns, it feels like a safer investment for a lot of folks, because they can just write it out and collect the rents, during this entire period, and everybody needs a place to stay. So multifamily, at least what we're seeing right now, has not dropped at all. I am not seeing cap rates go down, and that's what everybody asks me. It's like, are cap rates going up? I'm like, are we seeing, and for those of you, I'm going to be using some terms some of you may or may not know, gross rent multiplier, GRMs, cap rates, but typically, the lower the cap rate, frankly, the more expensive the property is, right? The less return you're getting. The higher the cap rate, the better return, right? And the gross rent multiplier is the opposite, right? The higher a gross rent multiplier, the more expensive a property is, the lower GRM is, the more value it is, right? So typically, a lot of investors are looking at cap rates. They're looking to see, are cap rates going up? Because typically in a higher interest rate environment, you start seeing interest rates going up. That is not happening. It's not happening in Southern California. I'm not really seeing it happening in most places. Because, like I said, rents just continue to be strong. There is still no inventory, right? I mean, we look at our own portfolio of management, we have less than 2% vacancy rates, right? Things that are on the market go like that, in terms of rentals. So our vacancy rates are always very low. And that's, I think, a major reason that people keep investing in this particular market. Now, the risk that people are seeing is regulatory, okay? And what I mean by that is, particularly in the city of LA, we're seeing like there's still an eviction moratorium right here in the city of Los Angeles. That eviction moratorium goes until June 2023, okay? So there's that. You cannot raise rents during this period, okay? So we're talking still another 11 months, and we don't know if it could be extended beyond that. So those types of regulatory risks from the city, from the county, from the state, these are existential, right? Like, and it was funny, I was just getting a text from a campaign manager for one of the major city council races, right? This is where those types of races do make a difference, right? Because the city council will vote on rent control, eviction moratoriums, all these things. So getting involved actually on the political level, on a local level, is actually really important when it comes to these kind of multifamily regulatory things. But they were asking me, they're like, what do you think of this candidate, versus our candidate when it comes to these types of issues, So people are reaching out because they're like, because elections coming up, they got to get a job. If you're a politician, I work with politicians all the time. So, anyway, so yeah, it's a very interesting time in the multifamily world. I would say, it's definitely counterintuitive, right? Like I said, whereas in the residential side, you definitely see the slowdown. Once again, we're just not seeing it yet on the multifamily side, and I don't know if we're going to be seeing it anytime soon. So now let's move into kind of, first of all, does anybody have questions or thoughts or concerns or anything about what we're talking about with regards to the market? Does anybody have any questions? Online or in person?
I think I also just want to add to that, because LA City has very strict guidelines in terms of inspections. So there is what's called the SCEP inspection. It's code enforcement to make sure that the rental properties are safe for our tenants to live in. And those regulations have changed quite a bit due to COVID the last 2 years, since inspectors can't go inside the units. They are looking at building permits, and that's really caused a lot of issues for owners. I have an owner who was going to be potentially paying $15,000 to $30,000 for permits for electrical for their heating and for their central air, and that was done prior to them purchasing the building. So, I mean that kind of is another factor for multifamily investment that makes it a bit more challenging for owners to navigate.
That's a really excellent point. And what we're seeing is that because, once again, some of these regulatory issues, whether it's code enforcement or eviction moratoriums or whatnot, some people are getting out of the multifamily space and getting into other types, either like say a DST, also a Delaware Statutory Trust, which might be like buying a large building somewhere, like a shopping mall in North Carolina or something, or 500 units in Texas, or being a small part of that, or buying a triple net property, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but we're seeing those types of changes. People who have had particularly longer term, especially here in a rent-controlled environment like we live in Los Angeles. You see long-term owners wanting to get out of their long-term plays, which then frankly opens up opportunities for other people to get in, right? So there are definitely going to be more and more opportunities. The other thing that we're seeing, and we get this almost on a daily basis, is that there's a generational shift happening as we speak, right? Like the baby boomer generation, a lot of them who have owned this real estate, oftentimes they've managed it on their own, et cetera, they're retiring, or frankly, they're passing on to the next life, right? And who contacts us? The kids, right? So kind of Gen X millennials are starting to take over their parents' properties, and they're looking at these properties, they're like, I don't want it. And that's why they call us on the management side, is because these are properties often that have had long-term tenants, are below market, they haven't really been brought up to market. Yeah, and so those are all things that people are doing as well. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, we will move on to our next section, which is our needs, feels, and wants. So this is an opportunity for anybody who has a need, a deal, or a want to express themselves in this forum in a safe manner, hopefully. So I'm going to, do you mind sharing my listing here? Thank you, Marshall.
You got it. I don't know where I put it. Here we go.
Can you guys see that on Zoom?
1 second.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
1 second. Sorry. There we go.
There we go. I think you need to click on it though.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it is. Here we go.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is a unique property you can go down. So this building, if you don't go down too far, yeah, just a little bit more, is a fourplex in the front. So there are two, this is in Lake Balboa, in San Fernando Valley, basically part of Van Nuys, just west of the 405. So this is a fourplex. There are two bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. But in the back, the owner has built 2 brand new ADUs. One is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the other is a studio. The 2 ADUs are, of course, new construction, everything brand new, central air, hardwood floors, new appliances, all that stuff. Both have tenants at market rate. I think the 2-bedrooms at $2,400 and the studio's at $1,600. He basically converted the garage. The front fourplex, that's long-term tenants, and they're probably paying about 50% below market. So what's interesting about this property is it's an opportunity to go up a little bit. You start to see some of the numbers. Those are the new construction ADUs in the back.
Sure.
Yeah. So currently, these are the rents. Keep going up. There we go. Okay, so the current cap's about a 4.87. The way it's priced at 1.65 million. If you were to get those units up to market, you would be at a 7.4 cap, which of course would be unheard of, right? It's in Los Angeles. They do use ROBs. I think they use livable for some part.
I think they do. They have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a good example of being able to use it. In fact, you see up here there's a line item RUBS, ratio utility billing service, and that's the income that they're getting from those, and that's from the two units. And Sophia will talk more about that. But what's unique about this property, so for those of you who are aware of how kind of multifamily financing works, so 1 to 4 unit property, so anything from 1 to 4 units is still under residential finance. 5 units or more typically is under commercial finance. Now this is unique, right? Because it's a fourplex with 2 ADUs. So is it a 1 to 4 unit property or is it a 5 or more unit property?
Mixed use, maybe?
Well, it all depends on which lender you talk to. Some lenders will consider this a 1 to 4 unit residential. The advantage of that, of course, is that you can get residential rates. You can lock in a 30-year fix if you want to. Okay. Commercial lending typically is more based on the income, and they're shorter term rates. That's just meaning like you're only going to get 3, 5, 7, or 10-year fix. You're not going to get a 30-year fix on. And a commercial lender will typically just look at the property and then look at the numbers and then tell you how much you need to put down. I'll give you an example. I had a buyer come and look at this, and they said, Chase told them, Chase is one of the biggest commercial lenders out there, they looked at this and they said, I need you to put down $1 million. Okay, so anybody want to do the math on that? Like, what's that percentage down?
It's like more than 50%.
It's more than 50%, obviously, we're like 60-something%, right? That's what the commercial lender would say. But a residential lender would typically say 25 to 30% down. You know, so that's a big difference in terms of what you need to put down. Once again, I'm not a lender, you are. So these are all questions for a lender and what type of financing you might be able to call. But it's an interesting, you know, potential plan. Anthony, I know you have a triplex you wanted to pitch.
Yeah. Marcia, if you want to just click that link.
Click on this link here.
So I have a triplex in Silver Lake, which is on a hill with amazing views. It's super, super prime real estate in Silver Lake. It's a triplex currently. There's a front house, and then there's a back building with 2 1-bedrooms and then an unpermitted studio. And this opportunity would be really, really great for someone who would like to move in as an owner user and move into the front house. There's a large private yard. There's a huge balcony with great views. And then of course the 2-bedroom house. And then the back building has 3 levels. Each level has living quarters. So there's basically a 1-bedroom on the top floor, a 1-bedroom on the middle floor, and then an unpermitted studio unit on the bottom. And there's room to build. There's a garage that's detached. So I put in the chat 837 Mitchell Terrena. So if you go to 837 Mitchell Terrena, you can see videos, photos, Matterport, which kind of helps you to walk through each unit to take a look at it. All the floor plans are there. But the one really cool thing that I did with this was our speaker from last month was Brickworks LA. And Brickworks will put together an ADU report, and they'll do all the research and figure out what the highest and best use of the property could be. So what they determined was, you know, this was a triplex. I'm like, okay, what can we do? And they said that you'd be able to add 2 detached ADUs to the triplex. So you could convert the garage, which is right up against the property line, and that property line would be grandfathered in. So you could build right up into the garage. And then there's plenty of room to build another ADU. There's a flat area at the bottom, and then there's a small slope through the back of the hill. So you could build a ground up ADU. And then kind of as a bonus, you're able to also convert any type of uninhabited space to a unit. And there's already a studio that's there that the owner uses that has a bathroom and a little kitchen area that's part of that back house. So you could convert that to a rental unit, probably, I would guess, pretty easily. Or there's also an attached old garage to the main house that you'd be able to convert as well. So you could do one of those. So you'd have to work with an architect and see what's better. But anyway, it's a great opportunity for somebody to be an owner user, to get into Silver Lake and have some income from the back units, or somebody who's looking to, you know, to develop and to convert the garage to an ADU, build another ADU and convert one of the uninhabited spaces. I mean, if it's someone who's owner user, I would probably recommend like move into one of the units and convert that studio on the ground floor to a rentable unit, and start there, you know. And as you save up money and build, as you're, you know, building your wealth, then convert the garage and then build the next one. So it kind of has a lot of opportunities for, you know, somebody who's looking to go in there and spend a lot of money and increase the value, you know, substantially, or someone who just wants to move in and just do a little at a time. You kind of have both options. So 837mitchellterrena.com is the website, and take a look at it and share it with anyone you might know. And happy to answer any questions anytime. Thanks, Will.
I have a couple questions, Anthony. Is it being delivered vacant?
No, so it's currently rented. The front house is being rented for $4,200. The back 2 1-bedrooms are, don't quote me, but they're approximately $2,700 each. One of the tenants may be moving out soon. The other one, we don't We don't know if they have any intention to move out. They mention it, but we don't know for sure. So it'll be delivered with the tenants.
It'll be delivered with the tenants. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to move into the front house, you can move into the front house. You just have to give, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but like 60-day notice. And if you're going to be owner occupying any of the units, you could do that with a 60-day notice. Is that right? And their leases are all month to month at this point. So none of them are like a new year lease.
So is it zoned as a single family with 2 ADUs, or is it zoned?
No,
it's
it's a triplex.
Okay, so most likely you're gonna have to go through the city of LA housing and do what is it called, owner occupied like notice of eviction basically. So there is usually a kind of buyout scenario, like a rental, like a relocation, a tenant relocation that may have to be paid. But once again, we'd have to get into it, you know, to confirm. So.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's gorgeous and it's in a great area, so we're like, so
yeah. And unfortunately, you can't really see the views from the photos, but there's a lot of great views. It's on the top of the hill in a canyon.
Like, yeah, it's like some of the best houses in Soho. Yeah. So yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Anthony.
Thanks,
I have a question.
Yes, Tim.
Anthony, how much did Brickworks charge for that study? Because I remember they were really reasonable.
For the one I got, it wasn't the basic one. It was like one step up, and it was $300.
Still,
so it's completely worth it. I spent it as a realtor to use for my marketing. Yeah.
And I had a question for Will too. In tenant eviction for owner-occupied city of LA, you said there's a buyout, which I had assumed. Is it capped mathematical, or is it kind of like they can hold out for a lot of money?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, I know that sometimes it's semi-mathematical, like you owe them so much, kind of how long they've lived there, and you know whether they're
Yes.
if they're not handicapped or if they're a certain age. Is that how it is, or is it basically the tenant can basically say, no, I want more, and negotiate more for the keys?
So there are two types of. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify to make sure that there's, maybe you're going to say that two types. One is where you're moving into the unit, and the other one is where you're just taking someone out. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is the owner-occupied scenario, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, the owner-occupied scenario is different than trying to do a tenant buyout. An owner-occupied scenario, well, they both have the same formulas, frankly.
Okay.
But on the owner-occupied scenario, that's more, it's like almost for sure that as long as you follow the rules, you will get the unit, you know, delivered to you. A tenant buyout is different. A tenant buyout is, there is a mathematical formula based on numbers of years lived, you know, income, all this stuff, but the tenant does not have to accept it.
That was my question. Thank you.
Yes.
But they do it owner occupied.
Yeah, you do. The tenant does not have to accept the tenant buyout. So, something.
What if you have an owner occupied where the owner is over 65 and disabled, or the tenant is over 65 and disabled?
I'm sorry, say that again.
In an owner-occupied scenario where you're trying to evict the tenant and live in the building, what if the tenant is over 65 and disabled, and does that make a difference?
I believe that you can still, I mean, if you're owner-occupying it, you should still be able to go by, follow the rules and do the payout by the formula and still be able to do the owner-occupied kind of eviction. Once again, we're getting a little bit into stuff that we should have a legal person like answer, you know, because this gets into kind of tenant landlord law,
right?
You know, especially in the city of LA, and each city has its own rules. We're in West Hollywood, like West Hollywood has a completely different set of rules than LA City, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena. Each one has their own set of rules, so it really depends on where you're at and which, you know. Yeah, so I think it's, you know, we have had landlord tenant lawyers come and speak, and we probably will do it again soon because these are good questions.
Yeah, Anthony said that would be a great session. So
yeah, they keep changing, they do. I know Cindy has a property that she wants to pitch.
Yes, I do. Marshall, can you pull up the one for me?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
You want to start talking about it?
Okay.
And then
All right. Okay, my name is Cindy Lee. I actually have this investment opportunity in San Bernardino City. It's actually a restaurant called Golden Corral. So this is a sale leaseback. So the seller eventually will become the tenant. So that's why it's a sale leaseback. The good thing about this investment opportunity is an absolute triple net lease, which means being the landlord, you don't need to worry about anything. You don't need to pay the property tax. You don't need to pay the insurance. You don't even need to maintain this property at all. So if you are looking for something that has hassle-free, minimal responsibility, this is an opportunity for you. So currently, the offer price for this property is about $7.5 million. But of course, the price seems really high. It's located in a very strategic location. It's literally next to the 10 freeway and it's not far from 215. The lot itself is 2.23 acres. So we have more parking lots than we need. So that's an idea for people. So I know you can make money by putting Tesla charging station here. This is another way for you to make additional income other than the rental income. The rental income right now, it's about 360,000 a year, but everything is negotiable. So the cap rate is for the first year is about 4.8 cap. But as I say, everything is negotiable, so it has a great potential like being about 5 cap. 5 years down the road, your cap rate will be around 5.3. So look into that. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. As I say, this is an absolute triple net. Like Milta is saying, some people want to diversify your investment. So a lot of people are looking into absolute triple net in the retail or industrial, sectors. So this is not a bad opportunity at all. So since it's a chain restaurant, so lease term is minimum 15 years, and you would prefer to have 2 options, 2 10 years options. So you are secure with this tenant. So currently the books is pretty nice. The rental is only a small fraction of the gross income. So don't worry about his financial situation. It's pretty solid. So this is a map of where it's located. You can see it's located in very, I would say, commercial, a lot of well-known retailers, Amazon warehouse is just the north of it. So there are more warehouses. Airport is not far. San Bernardino Airport is not far from it. This is the map. So that's all I want to present today. Okay, thank you.
thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
So no expenses whatsoever, they're pocketing 360,000.
That's correct. That's how triple net works.
That's like 5% return.
That's what we're saying. That's the point.
Yes.
That she's talking about. Yeah.
You can get a loan with it. I talked to Artstone, but for the loan details, call me or call Artstone.
Yeah. So last year we had a client who sold a 30-unit property in Loyal Heights. It was an SRO and single resident occupancy, like 50 dorms, right? Shared bathrooms. She delivered it like 80% vacant. And we sold it for like a little over $3 million. She took those funds and she bought a Dollar General in Oregon, triple net, absolute triple net. She did not, for like $2.5 million and cash because that's how much she got out of the transaction. And now she's sitting wherever she's sitting, she's paying or whatever. Enjoying her life, she doesn't have to worry about taxes, insurance, maintenance. That's the beauty of kind of triple net, properties. They're always, as with every property, there's always upsides and downsides, there's always risk, whatever. You should always think about those things, but there are a lot of people who are thinking about doing triple net because of this option. Is there anyone else who has a need, deal, or want that they want to do before we introduce our speaker? Going once? Anyone online? Going once? Going twice? So. So it is my pleasure to introduce, okay, I'm not even gonna tell your last name, Sophia.
From Liverpool.
Sophia from Livable.
Yeah.
We're very excited to have her with us. As Diana mentioned, we use Livable a lot for a lot of our properties. We're proud to say we were one of the first ones in the LA area to use them, and now they're all over. Everybody talks about using ratio utility building services, and as you know, as a landlord myself, I use them, and I will say that it's just, you know, it helps on so many levels. It helps to decrease your, obviously, utility costs, and all that stuff, but it also, I mean, it also helps the environment, because your tenants are now aware of what their water usage is, what their electrical usage is, all these things. So I think overall, it's a fantastic way. It's also a way to increase your cap rate, you know, so that's also very, very important. So with that, happy to turn it over to Sophia.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, for inviting me. You know, pleasure to do this presentation for everyone, especially you know, since there's so many people, you know, people who have worked with Livable, continue to work with Livable, and you know, we're constantly trying to improve our services and do our best for our customers and our future customers as well, as Livable is expanding throughout LA. So a presentation will be pulled up. You know, I'll kind of go through it pretty quickly, but I definitely want to highlight a few key things that I prepared specifically for this market. You know, big theme that we, you know, Will has been discussing is the legality, right? Legality is definitely something that's going to have a massive influence on how you can implement RUBs. But obviously we do have solutions for you. You know, we try to stay on top of legality, and we do so, you know, by having fantastic customers like Will and his wife who are, you know, who are on top of things, like a part of the collective. We also partner with partner associations all over California. We partner specifically with AGLA, which is the Greater Los Angeles Partner Association, and we're also AOA, which is Partner Association, Apartment Owners Association, and you know, we also partner with AOA, and we partner with, you know, AOC and SFAA, and so it goes, you know, it goes on with all the abbreviations, but you know, we try to stay on top of everything. So really quick overview. You know, RUBS, we've been around since 2009, just to establish authority, right? We've been growing ever since, and we continue to grow every single day. And hard to fight off, you know, discovery calls while I'm here, but I made the time. And of course, you know, definitely our goal, I mean, our goal is to promote conservation, but the way we do it is by increasing the net operating income, right? And so we very much, you know, believe that if you tie the cost for water, sewer, trash to the tenant, it will result in reducing your overall bill and also overall consumption, right? And I'll get into that in a second, but one of our main differentiators as a company, and probably why everyone's talking about Livable, and why that, you know, the property that we looked at, 1.6 million is using Livable specifically is because we do not have any unit minimums. Now, the fact that we don't have any unit minimums is not just lack of barrier to entry into, you know, to Livable to get our services. It's also that we can customize per unit. And this customization per unit of which units are billable and how they're billed is extremely important, especially in this market. And let me look at everybody who's here as well, because you know, you have 80%, you know, vacancy, for example, and then you can actually start off those new tenants with RUBs, but then you have, you know, 20% or whatever percent for a single building where you cannot change leases, right? Especially in LA City, again, you know, very different. West Hollywood's different, Burbank's different, Glendale's different, and we can, you know, San Leonardo is different, so we can get into all of those potentially, right? But you know, the burden of responsibility is mostly on your shoulders to know your markets and your laws, but we do try to, you know, have the knowledge on our end as well. So, you know, and another big differentiator is we have fantastic tenant support, right? When you're rolling in RUBs, RUBS is definitely, charging separately for utilities, I would say now is definitely more common than it was, right? Because we have more robust RUBS systems, and with livable with delegate minimums, now every single, anyone who hears about us is signing up, right? And so smaller multifamilies are signing up as well, even, duplexes, right? With one unit, owner-occupied duplexes with 1 unit who wants to sign up, anyone, right? And so we have a tenant support team for your tenants. We also have customer, success teams for you. So when you sign up, we take care of you. When you continue with our service, we continue to take care of you. We continue to take care of your tenants as well. I just clicked to go. Okay, cool. So, just what I was saying, that we're firm believers that if you tie consumption, to tenant's pocket, they're going to use less, right? So billing for water, sewer, trash is very common in California. So we'll talk about some here. This is actually extremely important because as of, right now, if you look up water supply alert, there's going to be articles in August, as of like this August, like from last year, and then in July as well, in June. And so what water supply alert is our governor trying to reduce the amount of water that commercial buildings use, and also it's like seeping into residential and multifamily buildings. So as a multifamily owner, right, as a building owner, you have tenants, and the tenants don't pay water, and you pay the water for them. How do you get tenants to start caring about their consumption when you have this responsibility to reduce your consumption by 15%? You get rents. That's how you get it. I mean, you could definitely sell centimeters as well. That's definitely, that's going to be more of a fiscal investment. Bigger to do that, you can continue to use our services, but with RUBS, you do not have to have that initial fiscal investment that comes with centimeter installation. And so we can't really see here, but what we do once you get RUBS, and I can start off with this. I'll go back to this, but just so you know, what we do is inform your tenants what their consumption is every month. The tenants will get online portal. You will in turn get a livable property management portal from which you'll be able to monitor everything that's happening for your building, how much we're charging your tenants, how much your recovery is, your future recovery, and if you would like to schedule time with me, I can show you a complete demo as well of our system. We also have a fantastic utility recovery calculator and just, the allocation table, and I'll get into all of these. These bullet points are just details that I'm going to cover anyway. Okay. So how do we figure out how much to charge your tenants for the water bill if there's no sub-meter? What is the ratio utility billing method? So again, we've been around for a long time. We have decades and decades of data to figure out what the best method is to do, to charge for utilities, right? So as I mentioned, water, sewer, trash, and hot water. Hot water is specifically if a hot water heater is separately metered by a gas meter, which is considered common area gas, but there is a legal specification for separately metered hot water heater. That's what we call hot water. You can't even meter trash, right? And trash bills are continuously going up. San Francisco State Ecology in that case spoke to LA City as well, and that I've had many discussions about it. So trash bills are going up, your water bills are definitely going up, and to reduce consumption. So here's our allocation table again. So this is number of occupants you'll see and the occupancy factor per occupant. So it's called ratio utility billing and allocations and not division, because allocations literally is to allocate the cost accordingly. Thank you. Is to allocate the cost accordingly, right? So let's say you have, a 10-unit building, and unit A has 1 occupant, unit B has 2 occupants, unit C has 3 occupants, and so forth. So I do want to explain the logic of the way that we do allocations. So one person is going to probably turn on, the water, the, shower, the sink, right, use the bathroom by themselves. But then when you have 2 people, that doesn't mean that there's going to double the occupants, right? Because 2 people can wash dishes together. 2 people can shower together, it's their water. Right? And so it's not
That's why they charge us.
That's exactly it. We need to reduce water by 50%, right? And then it goes forward because you have a limited amount of sinks with with a certain amount of people. So it's not gonna be a one-to-one factor, which is why our allocation method, just with the occupancy factor is specific to livable. The other thing we do is we consider in-unit amenities and building amenities, right? So let's say you have a building and some of the units, you have that, you have 2 new constructions and they have a washer dryer in each one, and you have 4 old construction, 4 old units, and there's no washer dryer. In fact, the water line isn't hooked up or into the washer dryers or anything, right? How do you account for the differences in-unit amenities and building amenities? We take that into account. So you have a property with 3 washing machines, right? You don't want to double charge the tenants for the water used for the washing machines. We take that into consideration. Depending on the number of washing machines you have, we have a formula for that, right? You have in-unit amenities that are different for the different units. We take that into account as well. So when we're doing the allocations, we're taking into account the occupancy, in-unit amenities, and building amenities. Now, you'll see here that it says we recover 90% of your utility costs through ratio utility billing. This is different for some of your billing. But why 90% of ratio utility billing? Because it is a ratio method, right? It's not exact measurement, and we need to make sure that we are being fair, not only through ethics, but also legality, right? So this 10% buffer we do not touch whatsoever, we do not take that money. That is just something that we do not cover. So 5% of that 10% is common area deduction. The common area deduction is those numerous, washing machines, pool, landscaping, whatever it is. Usually the 5% covers those common area amenities, but it can always be adjusted for the entire building. So common area can be adjusted for the building, goes back to our flexibility, right? The other 5% is goodwill deduction. Now goodwill deduction can be adjusted per unit. And this goes back to our flexibility with no unit minimums as well, right? So let's say, you have, my goodness, I don't even know, let's say you have, the 5%, first of all, the reason that we have the 5% goodwill deduction is to make sure that, we have a grace area for each individual unit. So, not everyone's habits are the same every month, right? Let's say someone travels for a few days, let's say some person would wash their car, right? Whatever it is, you have a tenant come up to you or, call our tenant support team and say, it's like I wasn't here or there was an anomaly. That 5% is there to account for those billing anomalies. And so we have that in place. Again, it can be adjusted per unit. So let's say you have a tenant come to you and say, from March to June, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be contributing to the water use. Can you not charge me for water? You can increase the occupancy factor, or you can increase the goodwill deduction through your livable property management portal for that specific tenant. And then when they come back, you can, put it right back. And I can show you this with the number too. But let's say, more people move into a certain unit, right? You had two tenants in one unit, and suddenly you have, 3 or 4, they have kids or their friends have moved in, and you allow them to move in. How do you account for that? You can increase the occupancy factor, right? So this goodwill deduction, the common area deduction, are your friends in order to make sure that you are billed fairly and legally. And if the rent board ever knocks on your door, which it will not, because you guys are always doing business, in a very legal and friendly way, we still have that fantastic 10% buffer to ensure that you are billed fairly, right? And you're never going to be recovering more than your actual utility bills are. So, how do we get your utility bills? Hang on. Should I just move it?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I mean,
It's literally drag it.
Okay.
So you can grab it.
You can also shrink it with that left, top left.
Oh, yeah, there.
Actually,
Right
like
there.
this. Yeah, there you go.
To remember to look at the camera though.
Yeah.
Everyone's here and everyone's here,
Yes.
so this is
There are people online who are very interested in what you're saying.
I
They want to make sure you understand.
And I will literally give you all my phone number and email, and if anyone has any questions, always feel free to reach out. I'll reiterate 1 million times. I can do this in my sleep. So this is how much I believe in livable, and we know we're doing a good job. So how do we actually get, how do we do the allocations, right? So we have 2 different billing methods, and then I just like to start off with saying, the first 2 lines are exactly the same. And so what we do is we download your utility bills directly from your provider. When I say utility bills in California, I mean water, sewer, trash. We'll get into gas and electric later, but so we'll download your water, sewer, trash bills directly from your provider, given that you give us your utility credentials. Very, very, very few places in California, very few providers do not have online portals. Not a problem in SoCal, I've noticed. So definitely just give us your utility credentials. This happens during onboarding. We will download the bills for you, monthly or bi-monthly, and we will allocate the bills to the tenants, with the allocation method I mentioned in the slide prior. And then we will go ahead and then we will, create the billables essentially. And so there's two ways that you can bill your tenants for the utilities once all of this is done, right? So with the bill and collect method, this method is usually great for the mom and pops, the independent rental owners who do not use property management software. What we do is we go ahead and set up your tenants with that online portal. And your tenants can pay through that portal by setting up auto pay. Of course, we can also do paper statements. They can do one-time payment. They can do it over the phone. We do have different payment methods to make sure that every single demographic is able to make their utility payments in a timely manner. So that's no problem. And then we collect. So we bill the tenants, we collect the payment, and then we send you reimbursement in arrears. So there is a little bit of a timeline depending, on when your utility bills are billed. We bill the tenants accordingly very quickly, and then we can just do direct deposit right back into your account. Now, if you do have property management software, you might want to use the convergent method, which is the tenants pay you. So we do prepare all of the bills, right? We prepare all the charges for each tenant. You can download these charges either as line item or bulk, but what we can do is just post the charges to your tenant ledger somehow. It depends on what system you use, and I'll give an example with what's a property management software that's popular? AppFolio, perfect. That's what they do. And so what you can do is just for AppFolio specifically, they have a closed API, so we can't go into your AppFolio. If it was Yardi Voyager, different story, but AppFolio, we have all of your tenant charges prepared, right? And so all you have to do is go into the local property management portal, download the CSV file, upload it into AppFolio, and all of the utilities will fall on the tenant ledger, either line item per utility or as a lump sum. And then your tenants can continue to pay for their rent and for their utilities through AppFolio. So 2 clicks. The downside of having a closed API for AppFolio is that you will have to process tenant turnover through LIVABLE's property management portal. Super easy to do so, extremely intuitive, not really an issue. And also process tenant move out. One of the good things about what our property management portal does is that you can actually process move out prior to the tenant moving out. So you can estimate a utility bill for the move out prior to your tenant moving out, right? So between the last statement and before your tenant move out, before the next statement, you can process that bill and not have to chase after your tenants, essentially. And then you'll receive an invoice for our service fees, through QuickBooks. So easy. Okay. So when can you actually incorporate REVs in SoCal? Right, $1 million question for legality and everything. Now, it's different in every place, right? The easy ones are where, Burbank isn't rent controlled, Glendale is California state rent controlled, right? So it's Burbank. Places that are California state rent controlled, it can be on month-to-month leases. You can give a 30 to 60 day notice, and you can, start billing. Now, LA City, Santa Monica, Long Beach, all of the really strict rent control markets, we have a specific utility addendum for you. And so the best time to implement REVs in the strict rent control cities is at lease renewal. So those 2%, your overall 2% portfolio vacancies, celebrate that when you want to do REVs. So don't worry if you have a vacancy at any point in time. It's a good thing for your strict rent control markets, because that's exactly when you can, sign up for LIVABLE or sign up before as well, and just get our utility addendum and have that ready for your future tenants in your rental packet. That way, when your future tenants come in, they're signing the rental agreement along with the utility addendum. It's ironclad, right? I'm not gonna say ironclad, not a lawyer, but you know, it's very effective, right? And so I do want to point out for this market as well, for SoCal, there's different ways that you can charge for utilities in general. Let's say you have properties in Santa Ana or like just general California rent control, you might hear that you can do utilities not as rent, not here. And here you have to, with SoCal overall, you do have to do utilities as rent, unless the specific city has a different ordinance, right? Burbank, again, not, you know, California state rent control, you can do utilities not as rent as far as I know, but I'm not a lawyer, but as far as I know, and that's what I've seen, right? But LA City, we have a specific addendum for LA City because utilities absolutely have to be part of base rent. And so how do you calculate how much to charge for utilities when utilities are fluctuating in LA City, right? I have an answer, obviously. I have an answer. Is it the answer that I would like to give you? No, but the answer that I would like to give you is, you know, mathematically impossible, so here's the answer that I will give you. You figure out the average cost for utilities of the building, and then you multiply that by, let's say 2.5, 1.5 or something, whatever you think, you know, as long as you're not exceeding the maximum rent increase that you're allowed to give, you multiply it by that amount. And so that ensures that your tenants are never going to be paying more than the not to exceed amount. So I'll say this again. Let's basically, you have to calculate the average per unit cost for all of your utilities that you want to charge for, water, sewer, trash, multiply that average to create a not to exceed amount, and that not to exceed amount goes into your utility addendum so that you're never going to be overcharging your tenants, because you cannot, you know, you can't charge utilities separately from rent in this market down in SoCal. And again, I do have the lease addendum, we have the guided video, so I could definitely put that, but I'll continue a little bit. So what happens when you absolutely cannot implement RUBS, which definitely happens, right? You can't do rent increases. I mean, you have tenants who've been living there for like 20, 30, 40 years, right? We have a solution for you, and that solution is net zero billing. So net zero billing is a fantastic way to introduce RUBS, but also just promote conservation, right? And I think, you know, definitely for rent control units, for Section 8 especially, when you cannot change the lease, when you cannot implement RUBS, at least show your tenants how much they're using. And by doing so, I'll just show you a quick bill. This is the net zero bill, and this is a regular bill. You'll see that the units that you absolutely cannot start billing until there's a vacancy, right? You can at least show them their consumption. So this says charges you would pay, and you would owe, and the tenant owes zero, right? These are tenant charges, and then we have massive conservation type down there. So you need to promote conservation. You can't change, you know, you can't change the rental agreements, right, until they move out, or unless you buy them out, or by some miracle, right? And so you can incorporate net zero billing. And there's literally no difference between net zero billing and RUBS in terms of everything I've been talking about. This is the only difference. You owe zero. That is the net zero, right? Because you're only showing your tenants the bill, you don't have to, you know, you just have to send them an acknowledgement that you're showing it because you're not charging. Our fee for net zero billing is only $1. But we always have promotions on this, right? Because the purpose of it is to promote conservation. And then whenever that unit becomes vacant, you can always switch from net zero billing to RUBS like that. So it really works out. And this, you know, specifically, I know we have a person from San Francisco as well, same in the San Francisco market. LA City, San Francisco, Oakland, a few parts of Hayward, very strict rent control markets. So net zero billing is absolutely your friend. And we do see turnover with the net zero billing to RUBS. You never know when a tenant's going to move out. It's extremely important to remember this. Okay. And so, of course, you know, our favorite sub-meter billing. If you would like to install sub-meters, and I highly suggest you do, for gas and electricity, you could always reach out to Chuck for the smaller properties. Of course, you know, you're free to install sub-meters, but we also do sub-meter billing. If you would like to install sub-meters for any single utility, obviously besides trash. What we would do is the same, where we will download your actual, utility bills, and then we'll take the sum meter information and then allocate the bills to the tenants and bill them either through bill and collect method or the conversion method. So, not a lot of involvement, especially, for the new generation that you mentioned, right, who like don't want to have to do all of this, very, very few people want to do DIY and then they regret it and they come back to us anyway. So super easy to do that. And the other thing that I do want to mention, if I could just go back for sum meter billing. So for the gas and electricity in SoCal, we can't do REPs in general. So California Public Utilities Commission, along with PG&E, with Edison especially, and LAWP, as well, they're very strict about sum metering for gas and electric. So those small multi-family properties, right, with the ADUs that share an electric meter and gas meter, you have to install gas and electric meters. You obviously can do whatever you want with your property, but that is the recommended legal advice that I'll give, and I'm not a lawyer, okay? Yeah. And then we actually have another service offering, but I'll stop. This was the RUBS situation right here. That was all RUBS. Does anyone have any questions about RUBS? Because I will go into another product that we have, which is bulk internet billing, and I think that's something that you would be interested in, Will.
Yep.
And so, any questions about RUBS from anybody?
I'm sorry, did you say gas and electricity is in SoCal can't use for
With the RUBS?
The RUBS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get some meters. Yeah. Definitely get some meters for this. And you don't have to get some meters specifically, like I don't think you have to get some meters specifically from utility provider. You might just be able to do it separately. Either way, get some meters.
Does anyone online have any questions?
I just have a comment. I think that using RUBS is a really great tool, not just only for conservation, but also as an added value to, for us, our clients are the property owners, and also for, it's a great way to get some return on your investment as well. So we use Livable for our management clients, and they are, definitely very happy with it. And also they're, for the owners, it's definitely an added service that we provide.
Happy to hear. Yeah, we do recover 90% of utility costs, so definitely worth it.
I have a question too. If a tenant is being billed through Livable, they've got an account and they're not paying their bill, is there someone at Livable that follows up with those tenants, or is that? Because I know that we will get a report occasionally once a month, like who's behind, who's not behind. Livable is something that I'm still learning about. But is there someone in Livable that follows up with people that have past due balances, or how does it work?
Yeah, so we do have that dedicated tenant support team, and we do reach out to the tenants. The first step is obviously we charge a late fee to the tenants. That late fee has now become $15. So we reach out, we charge the late fee, we do our best to have the tenants actually pay by providing support. Other than that, we're not able to do anything else. It kind of falls into the property owners or managers' hands to collect payment from the residents who are not paying for utilities. And so you can deduct the utility from the security deposit, but then in terms of collections or any other legal procedure that you want to continue with, then it would be on you. But we do absolutely reach out to tenants.
All right.
Yeah, charge the late fee. And the late fee is also a way to make the tenants reach out to us, right? And hopefully pay their bill in full, and we'll waive the late fee or something like that. Just anything to get the tenants to pay.
All right, thank you.
Is Livable available in Texas, or is it only available in California right now?
We're absolutely available in Texas. We're definitely growing in Texas as well. Yes, which city are you in?
Houston.
Houston, yeah, definitely. I mean, So Texas has a very deregulated general way of, doing business. And so we've got a lot more people coming to Livable because of the way that we do business, which is more organized, right? So definitely we're able to service the majority of America, minus like a few cities that just don't allow reps at all. But it's like 3. So yes, on Texas.
Anyone else? Nope.
Okay.
Take it over.
So, another thing that we offer, this is new. We've been doing it for a while, but it's new because we actually have a new colleague, Margaret, who is actually the specialist on both Wi-Fi and video billing. So I'm going to go over this really quickly because it's not my area of expertise, but it is definitely a way to unlock more revenue. So very simply, let's say you have a 20 or 50 or 100 unit building, and every single one of your residents has their own Wi-Fi that they have to come in, set up, and then when the unit's vacant, the new person has to come in and do all that together, right? What you can do is offer cable internet to your residents at a higher actual, gigahertz, right, for the internet, versus how much an individual will be paying. But of course, you're going to be paying less because you're a bigger, you have a bigger contract with the provider. And so this way, you're able to charge, a fee to the tenants that's going to be less than what they would be paying themselves. And so you have like a marginal amount of income. So it's just a way to unlock revenue. Again, not an expert in this, but that is the gist of it, right? There's definitely, it's absolutely worth it to speak with Margaret, who is our cable internet billing specialist, because there are qualifiers that certain buildings have to go through regarding the provider for their cable internet billing in the area. We work very closely with Spectrum. So if you do too, you definitely should be calling. But either way, it's a great way to unlock revenue in that sense and provide a great service for your tenants too, and like alleviate all of that work that they have to go through to get modem and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's in the chat? Is there a question?
Just a thank you.
Okay.
That was the San Francisco one.
Yes.
Hardeep, thanks to you. Yeah, so if you just want to click there and then I'll hold this done anyway. Yeah, so here's like a really quick overview of it, and we have the flyer, and I will send you this entire presentation so that you have it, and you're able to
Share it with everybody who's on the call. Yeah.
And so here's what our clients have to say. But we have, we have our customers right here and right here. We've been saying great things about Livable. We're constantly trying to improve. And we hope that whoever else is listening, that everyone here, wants to unlock revenue while promoting conservation, right? Through issue utility billing and reducing our overall consumption, because the reality is that water is everybody's, right? It's not just the water that's flowing in our faucets. Yeah. And then you can always schedule a call with me, and I'll talk about everything all over again. Specific to your property. And offer very creative solutions on how you can get around. So I have open to questions. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I'm all ears.
So is this like a flat fee that the owner pays to Livable, or is it like a percentage for how much the utility bills for that month?
That is a great question. It is a flat fee. So it is a flat fee, and the fee is based on, we have tiers based on billable units, but it's very much agreeable, right? Because our fee includes up to 4 utilities, and I'm not in the shop.
There you go.
Sorry. Sorry, everybody. So it does, our fee does include up to 4 utilities, and that includes the net zero billing. That's a great question. Yeah. And you're recovering 90% of your utility costs. So even our maximum fee is absolutely worth it. Which our maximum is $12. It's not that much. It's really not. We're very transparent. So anyone else have questions that you can actually see?
Yeah, does anybody else have any questions online? or in person?
I actually have one.
Tony?
Yeah, Sophia, you mentioned that within a 30 or 60-day notice, you're able to implement this system, right, for tenants. Is that even for the rent controlled area in Los Angeles?
No.
Okay, I think I'm misunderstood.
Thank you for asking that question because it's an extremely important point to reiterate. If the property is in a non-rent controlled market or California state rent control where you are able to do a change of terms with 30 to 60-day notice, yes, but in LA City, again, thanks for asking this, no. So you have to wait for turnover in LA.
This is just for LA City.
LA City and San Francisco and Portland.
And West Hollywood, and Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica.
Yeah, Santa Monica, Long Beach, anywhere where you have strict rent control. So for anyone who has properties, elsewhere, and you're thinking about buying properties elsewhere, or you're making deals in properties elsewhere, the way that you can think about it is how do you treat rent? Can you do a rent increase? Can you do a rent increase in 60-day notice? If the answer is no, you can't do rent either. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay. Because I know.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, because I know you can implement the RUB system for the rent control areas, but just not right now. Just the fact that there is a rent freeze on it, right?
Well, no, Tony. What I would say is that as soon as you have a vacancy, you can implement. That's what we do in our units. So as soon as one of the units becomes vacant, you can implement RUBs. And we do that for all of our units in LA City.
Okay.
So the issue is if you have a building that's under LA City rent control, that's specifically a building built before August 1978, that means that you cannot, unless you already had that built into the lease, that you could add those utilities in, which most leases don't, you're not able to then put it into the lease unless you were able to negotiate a new lease, which most people can't.
I thought you were able to do that if you implement like a reduction of the rent, right? I think the city of Los Angeles have a formula that you can implement, and as long as you reduce the rent by that certain amount, you're able to do it. Is that correct?
So I want to say yes, but I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
So yes, I have definitely seen it happen, but we were not involved in the legal process to do so.
Got it.
What I 100% can offer you for those units is net zero billing, because you can start off any single rent controlled unit with net zero billing. In terms of reducing the rent and then adding on RUBs separately, basically as if you were turning back time, right? I've seen it happen, but speak with your attorney to make sure that you're good to go. Okay? But we will provide the utility addendum for you.
I'm getting a lot. I've got literally dozens of units that are about to come on the market of people who want to get out of rent control and into non-rent control units. That is built after 78 or built within the last 15 years, which would be completely out of rent control. And so, so a lot of those folks are looking to implement RUBs right into those buildings. So any building built after 1978 you are able to have
California rent control.
exactly California rent under AB 1482.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? So now you all know RUBs is not about massage. At least you got that out of today. At least you got that out of today's seminar. Is that we are talking about ratio utility billing service. I think Sophia again for coming all the way from. Want to thank everybody for coming today to our first, like I said, hybrid. We appreciate, Anthony and everybody and Marshall for all your help in getting this set up. Next month, we are planning to have some someone speak about ADUs, which is a super, super hot topic.
Yeah.
She's an ADU expert, she helps you build them, she helps you cost them out. Like, these are questions that a lot of people have right now, especially in the multifamily space, right? Because you can also, for the first time now, build ADUs on multifamily properties, including that one that I showed earlier. So, and recover their utility costs, exactly. So we will share Sophia's information to everybody, so you guys can contact her if you have any questions about livable and using RUBS in your buildings. And feel free to contact us if you have any questions on anything multifamily. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Anybody have, Anthony, you want to take us out? You have any other questions or thoughts? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just wanted to mention one thing. I just noticed the city of West Hollywood has a new pilot program for building ADUs. So I'll update everybody at our next meeting about that, since it's an ADU session. But basically, if you build an ADU that offers affordable rent, and I'm not sure what those numbers are yet, they help you with permitting, with design. Like, they cover a lot of the cost in the legwork of getting that done. So once I find out more, there's a couple calls that the city's having coming up. I'll share that information with everyone next time.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. All right. Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody for coming. We appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Bye.
See you next time.
Bye, Tim.
Bye.
Thank you.